AI models escaped and hacked a company in cybersecurity test gone wrong. The subhead here says before they could penetrate, Hugging Face is the name of the cybersecurity company that they hacked, defenses.
Which sounds psychotic. It sounds crazy.
Because they had broken out of their containment and then tried to hack into Hugging Face to get answers basically to a test that they were running.
You're really testing the waters and really acting irresponsibly.
People in the AI safety community who have been worried about AI's capabilities and dangers for decades have warned for a long time that this type of thing would happen, where you give the AI some goal and then it does unexpected things.
Do something about that now. Fucking do it. Whatever it is. If you're doing it on purpose, stop. If you're not doing it on purpose, figure it the fuck out and pause. I cannot co-sign this ride it till the wheels fall off, reckless race attitude. Whether that's an excuse or that's a real dynamic, it's just psychotic to me. What up, y'all? It's your boy Zane, the Gambit, and welcome back to Zane Zone Unlimited, back with another Gambit Reacts video, reacting to a Breaking Point episode on the coverage over the AI hacking incident from OpenAI's newest model and how it escaped a sandbox and autonomously hacked another company to pass a test. What does this mean for the broader AI safety conversation? We'll be covering that today. Stick around and prepare to zone in.
So we have quite a situation developing in the AI world. Let's go ahead and put this Wall Street Journal report up on the screen. OpenAI models escaped and hacked a company in cybersecurity test gone wrong. The subhead here says before they could penetrate, Hugging Face is the name of the cybersecurity company that they hacked, defenses. The models needed a way onto the internet. They found one. Joining us now to explain what happened and what all of this means is Garrison Lovely. He is a journalist and also author of the...
Now, this, of course, sounds reminiscent to me of the Mythos incident, but from the coverage I've seen, they're saying this is distinct. There's something uniquely different about this situation. I don't fully remember the details of that. I think that one escaped and sent an email. So I guess that was kind of where it stopped, and this kind of crosses that threshold.
So just help us understand, to start with, in non-technical language, what exactly happened here.
Yeah. So a week ago, this company Hugging Face publishes this post, and they're like, we were hacked by some AIs. It was definitely AIs. It happened really fast. We don't know which models they used and who was directing them, but we caught it with our own AI and addressed it, and we reported it to law enforcement. And then on Tuesday, OpenAI publishes a post, and we're like, hey, that was actually us.
Reported it to law enforcement for fucking AIs. Fuck are they gonna do?
Well, not exactly. It was our AI models acting autonomously because they had broken out of their containment and then tried to hack into Hugging Face to get answers basically to a test that they were running. And this is the first incident like this that we know of. It might not be the first one, because it's possible that this happened internally at OpenAI, but they just never reported it to the public.
Okay, so yeah. So I guess what makes this distinct from the Mythos situation is that I guess in the case of Mythos, in case you weren't familiar, it was very similar from what I remember. It was like they put it in a sandbox, which I guess is just a term that they use to describe this isolated position that they put the AIs in, which I believe is supposed to just be disconnected from the outside world, disconnected supposedly from the internet, right? So it's contained. Mythos apparently was put in a similar situation, and it winds up escaping, or whatever it does. It finds a vulnerability or whatever to escape its containment, and it winds up notifying and sending a message, an email to the person that was overseeing the test while they were on a lunch break, something like that. So it sounds similar to that. I guess the key distinction is, in this case, it autonomously escapes, but decides to hack another company under test conditions to like gain the answers to the test. And I guess that is what makes it unique, which sounds psychotic. It sounds crazy. And how the fuck, why the fuck, you know? Now, I've been watching a few different things about this, kind of skimming through YouTube. And so the initial comments I'm seeing are, of course, the doubters, and I'm really kind of there with them most of the time. But the knee jerk reaction to this is hype, and basically it's a PR stunt. Now, I would like to believe that. From my perspective, I try to be as skeptical as everyone else, while also maintaining an open mind. I don't know the details, and that's just the facts. I don't know the details. So I don't know. I mean, it's certainly plausible to me that this could be some kind of stunt. What I can say is that, stunt or not, they are really fucking around. If that's the case, if it is a stunt, if it is like some sort of marketing stunt, you're really, really testing the waters and really, really acting irresponsibly. I think almost more so than, you know, this actually being like a genuine sort of accident. So that's, I kind of hope that's not the case in a way, and I hope it is in a way.
It's possible that this happened internally at OpenAI, but they just never reported it to the public. And it's kind of hard to overstate the significance of this. People in the AI safety community who have been worried about AI's capabilities and dangers for decades have warned for a long time that this type of thing would happen, where you give the AI some goal and then it like does unexpected things that cause harm in the.
So this guy is convinced this is a concern. I don't know exactly really who this guy is, but he's obviously convinced that this is legitimately concerning, and not just some like hype market bullshit.
This type of thing would happen, where you give the AI some goal and then it like does unexpected things that cause harm in the real world in pursuit of that goal. And the risks of this scale as the models get better. And this is like a relatively low stakes version of it, but you could imagine next time it being a hospital, a bank, like the models will blackmail people in some circumstances. And it was a test, but if they had access to real world infrastructure that they could control and shut off, the blackmail might actually have some punch.
Can we put D2 up here on the screen?
This kind of seems like a one-to-one almost of the AI alignment explanation that a lot of the safety researchers talk about, which is alignment is not just getting the AI to do what you want it to do, but getting it to do what you're wanting it to do in a way that a reasonable, rational, well-meaning person would do it, right? So, meaning if you're going to get some answers to this test, right? Like, you actually gain the knowledge and pass the test, right? Like, that would be what any well-meaning person would want from that, request. And then you could argue humans could cheat or whatever. This thing is cheating, and it's taking it to a whole other level, right? So basically, it's doing whatever it can, cheating or not, ethics or not, method or not, whatever the case. It's not making those considerations. It's doing whatever it has to do to achieve the goal. And that is very much what the people warn about with, AI doomerism and AI safety and all this stuff, which is like, you can't we don't know how to get this thing in perpetuity to do what we want in the ways that we want. So I totally, totally sympathize with that. And that's exactly what it sounds like is happening. Now, normally, those people take this all the way to the super intelligence conversation. Um, there are people that have flagged things like this before, like the Alibaba incident, and a few other sort of scheming and the stuff with the blackmailing, digging up company emails and things like this, and blackmailing a person, to reach its goals, right? But this is different in that it's actually reaching the test parameters. It's actually affecting something in the wild, in the real world. And so this is something that I'm concerned about, that I feel like a lot of the AI safety people don't take it far enough. They're always kind of like, this is bad. This is a sign of things to come. And that's true, but in my opinion, this is bad now. Right? This is bad now. This is really, really bad. What if this hits critical infrastructure? What if this gets proliferated around? What if these capabilities get released? So if this is true, and that could really happen, that's concerning way before you get to super intelligence. There's a whole lot of shit you got to deal with before you even get close to that. Um, and if it is a PR stunt, again, it's still like they're playing with fucking dynamite. Like, it's dangerous and wildly irresponsible.
Test, but if they had access to real world infrastructure that they could control and shut off, the blackmail might actually have some punch.
Can we put D2 up here on the screen? So this is from a blog post that was published by OpenAI, and they say specifically, to gain access, the models identified and exploited a 0-day vulnerability. And this was happening, quote, in a sandbox testing environment. Can you translate some of that for our audience?
Yeah. So basically, the OpenAI models were operating in this environment where they're not supposed to have access to the outside world, the internet, anything like that. The models were trying to answer this evaluation. The questions were very hard. And they're like, well, these questions are hard. Maybe it'd be easier to just get the answers to the questions. So maybe to do that, I'll get access to the internet. So it like pokes around in its environment, finds like a little chink in the armor, and then it gets out and like starts jumping around to different servers within OpenAI until it finds one that has access to the internet. And then it uses that to start looking for what might have the answers to this.
So this just sort of seems like an inevitability when you chalk up like all the blackmail incidents, the Mythos incident, the quote unquote scheming incidents, the Alibaba incident, all these different kinds of incidents. Like, this seems like the logical conclusion that at some point it was going to do one of those things and take it to the point where it affects something in the real world. Like, I don't see how that is not exactly where you take this. And these people are using this race to justify this reckless behavior, and I got to tell you, I'm in the camp of like, what's the point of that if you're just going to fuck shit up? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me on any level why this is getting some weird pass on safety. And these fucking people can just do this shit recklessly. And I just think that the China and international angle is going to kind of wear thin. And then you kind of have to just assume that you take these people's word for it, that this is like the only way to do this thing. And I just don't believe that. It's just reckless.
Evaluation finds Hugging Face as a candidate, and then finds exploits in Hugging Face's code base that nobody knew existed, and then uses those exploits and like stolen security credentials and like all these classic hacker moves to get access to Hugging Face. And according to OpenAI, successfully found the answer set, and did this all on its own and without OpenAI noticing for maybe a week or more. This is like reading between the lines from the Hugging Face report, OpenAI's report. We don't have a super clear timeline, and OpenAI was vague about this because it looks pretty bad if your models both autonomously hack another company, which is a crime if a human did it, but can't be a crime because the models can't have intent legally. But if a human did this, it would be criminal. And then you have no idea it's happening until the other company figures it out, reports it, and then maybe you see the report and you're like, oh shit, that sounds like us. And then you
I do have to admit, if I were going to play, even more cynical than I already am, I could see the PR, I could see the marketing angle here. Because to me, even though they say that this is like the first of its kind, it does sound a lot like the Mythos story. But just like it took the Mythos thing further, right? So I could see the argument as like, they're just trying to one up the competition. But this speaks to another like video and topic that I was, talking about when I reacted to a conversation with Ed Zitron and Cal Newport, which is like the total lack of like responsibility here, right? Like, and the craziness, the things that just the irrationality of it, right? That it like they're doing things that seemingly run counter to their own business interests. Like in any other context, this would be damning to a company. And it really seems like these people believe that the more dangerous and wild that they make this thing seem, the stronger it seems, and so therefore that might make it more appealing. But I don't know. I feel like I could poke holes in that too. Because on the other hand, people are seeing that. People do have a strong pushback to AI. And when you saw the thing with Anthropic and the Pentagon, and you know, Anthropic like stepped away from that, whether you think they were full of shit, um, and hypocrites in that or not, like I do, the public responded and their popularity surged because they seemingly made an ethical decision. So just if that were part of the marketing still to like pull this kind of stunt seems even more counterproductive than it did before. Like if that is the case, it's very bizarre.
Can't have intent legally, but if a human did this, it would be criminal. And then you have no idea it's happening until the other company figures it out, reports it, and then maybe you see the report and you're like, oh shit, that sounds like us. And then you publish it. And so this is like, yeah, just kind of an unbelievable story across the board. Yeah, happy to go into more detail on any of it.
Yeah, so basically what it looks like happened is Hugging Face detected the intrusion and came public with it. But from OpenAI's perspective, they were just like, oh, the model got the answers. I guess it just figured it out. They had no idea that it had escaped, hacked, committed crimes in service of accomplishing its goals.
Maybe.
One of the things I saw sort of like, cope or rationale here from people who want to downplay this is, yeah, but, it was still just following this goal. It's not like it was going out there freelancing and coming up with its own objectives to go out.
And I hate that. That's one of the issues I kind of felt like Cal Newport was arguing. And it's like, dude, it doesn't matter. Like, it matters, but it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, is it doing the thing? Can it do the thing? That's what I care about. Like, technical people care about that. The average like, that sounds nuts, dude. Is it doing the thing? Can it do the thing? Accident or on purpose, that shit is like, it's dangerous, right? And we already kind of know that these people apparently don't have the most fucking secure shit. Unless this is some kind of stunt. We already know that like Anthropic shit has gotten leaked multiple times. Like, and assuming that now you do have this race, especially from China and other foreign actors, cybersecurity issues. Yeah, I mean, there's a good chance they're trying to steal models and copy them and do all this shit. Like, if you just let this shit out in the like, it's so wildly irresponsible.
And cause mischief in the world. It was just trying way too hard to accomplish the goal that humans had ultimately set for it. Why does that not assuage your concerns here?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if it were given like a biological, understanding evaluation, and then it's like, well, I'm going to hack and find the bio answer key, then like that's more evidence, right? That it's just generalizing to like, I am going to do something you did not.
Yeah, it can do the thing. Like, it can do the thing.
Not intend that's unrelated to the activity that you're testing me for. So that's worse. But I think it's also bad that OpenAI wanted the model to do this evaluation the right way, which would not involve cheating, stealing the answer key. And they definitely didn't want their model to do crimes and to like hack another multi-billion-dollar company. And so the fundamental point is that these companies, the most sophisticated in the world in many respects, are not able to reliably steer or control their own models. And those models are now autonomous and capable enough to take actions in the real world that could have really big consequences. And those consequences are just going to grow with time.
So now that language sounds exactly like how AI safety people talk. How Hinton talks, Bengio, Yudkowsky, Roman Yampolsky. Like, can we steer it? Is it aligned? What are its motivations? What are its, that is the same kind of language. And it seems like that's um, this sort of book he's sort of reading from in the way that he's describing this. And I do have to say that this feels like it gives that argument merit, and it seems to further indicate to me that they really don't fully know what they're doing. They don't fully understand what they're doing. They don't fully understand what they're fucking around with. And they don't fully know how to control it. And they just want to keep pushing. I don't care if it's a stunt. I don't care if it's, done on purpose or it's done autonomously. Like, from a technical perspective, you should care. Those things matter in terms of, solutions, what you do about it. But from a caution, safety, concern perspective, especially from, the general public, I don't care in that do something about that now. Fucking do it. Whatever it is. If you're doing it on purpose, stop. If you're not doing it on purpose, figure it the fuck out and pause. I cannot co-sign this ride it till the wheels fall off, reckless race attitude. Whether that's an excuse or that's a real dynamic, it's just psychotic to me. It's like it's almost like you're doing whatever you can to guarantee the bad outcome, chasing some sort of utopian thing in some reckless race that nobody asked for. Right? And that's the thing that really gets me is like, whether this race now is legitimate or, real or serious, if it really is an arms race, whatever the dynamic, this is not something that the public chose. The public is partaking in the use of a product, not this ideological Silicon Valley drive, not this geopolitical drive to dominate, nationally or geopolitically, or for one company over another. We don't have like an interest in that. As far as the public is concerned, we want to utilize products that work well for us and augment human capability and well-being. And that was the promise sold to us. And I think now the fucking veil is coming off and we're starting to see this is reckless. This is crazy. Right? Like it's not something that any of us asked for. And then you hear this rhetoric, like this Kevin O'Leary prick who wanted to put like a data center in Utah and is like alleging that these, completely groundlessly that these people, these women out of Utah were like somehow, undercover traitors for the Chinese government and like all these things totally foundlessly and shit that they had to retract. Right? Like this like weird paranoia that hyper rich, hyper elite people in this space care about. I don't care about that. The average person doesn't care. We're not bought in. That isn't something that we asked for, right? So don't try to justify this behavior. Don't tell me that these risks are necessary so we stay relevant. Don't tell me that we need to maintain control and we need to infect our entire country with data centers everywhere or we're going to lose some kind of race. That's your fault. You fuckers started that. These companies, the government that got behind them, the venture capitalists that invested, the ideologues in Silicon Valley, you fuckers started this shit. And now they want us to pay for it. at us to take the risk, right? And something that has nothing to do with us other than they stole our fucking information to feed their fucking beast, right? Like, I would rather the shit disappear right now than take that bargain, you know? And yeah, now we're seeing the shit that people have been warning against. Like, it's absolutely fucking ridiculous.
Their own models. And those models are now autonomous and capable enough to take actions in the real world that could have really big consequences. And those consequences are just going to grow with time
Yeah, fucking shocker.
as the models get more capable and autonomous. And the problem just gets harder, right? Because like they're superhuman at hacking in many respects now, but they could be like superhuman.
That's a good point. All the people that talk about super intelligence and AGI and all that stuff, in some ways, as stupid as it is, in a lot of ways, it's superhuman in a lot of aspects already. And that's why I say, like, it doesn't have to get super crazy, like, it doesn't have to fit the ASI or AGI definitions. Like, in a certain capacity, it's untenable to contain it now if it gets to a certain point. Because it can do things that we just can't do. It can calculate and move at speeds that we just cannot, right? So we're already, in dangerous territory, given the wrong conditions, like as far as I'm concerned.
In the next generation, and you'll need the very best models to keep up. And like Hugging Face was struggling to fend off this attack because they couldn't use the models that OpenAI and Anthropic, like the very best models on the market, because those models are like trained to not help with this type of thing because they can't distinguish reliably whether like you're actually defending against an attack or you're using that as a cover to do your own attack. And so Hugging Face had to use open weight models, which are less capable. And then OpenAI is like, we let them into our trusted access partner program as a result of this. And it's like, feels like a mob boss. Yeah, it's like, oh, like nice code base you got there. Like, shame if something were to happen to it.
Yeah, so let's go into that. There's been a lot of debate around this. What you just talked about, these open weight models. Largely, a lot of them are Chinese, which have been released. There's a huge debate now in Washington. I don't know if you saw this, actually happened late last night.
It's like referring to, like, instead of the closed source stuff that they're doing now, like OpenAI was supposed to be open source, right? That's where the open comes from. And, putting the technology and research out there for the world, obviously the companies in the States aren't doing that. And so now the Chinese companies are like, oh, well, we'll make it, a tenth cheaper and just give it to the world. And we'll make it so it's not a cybersecurity threat or as much of one. And they're gonna fucking eat our lunch. There's these people are spending exorbitant, crazy amounts of money on this shit, and the Chinese are like, yeah, like no big deal. Like we'll let your fucking bubble pop, and not only will we let it pop, we'll facilitate it. So we release models that undermine yours and drop the value of yours dramatically, and let your economy just fucking go to shit. Like I believe that's kind of what happened with the whole DeepSeek situation. Or something resembling that. Sorry, I'm not an expert on those kinds of things. But the newest one was like this Kimi K3, which like basically just shot up to like the top model in the world or whatever. It's apparently not as much of a cyber risk, which obviously seems to be an asset for the general purpose market. But I guess in terms of cyber,
the Secretary of the Treasury and then the White House AI czar, Michael Kratsios, both basically put out very veiled threats saying that the Kimi K3 model, which recently beat many of the American models in terms of testing for its power, they're claiming that it was distilled from the Fable 5 model released by Anthropic. Now, obviously, as you just said, these open weight models don't have the same, quote, guardrails or control, open source, open weight, which they're able to run and have been used.
Then maybe Anthropic and OpenAI should do a fucking better job of making sure their shit doesn't get stolen if you're gonna make wildly transformational technology. If you have a fucking history of leaks and then you create something that you say is going to undermine all of cybersecurity in the world, yeah, the fucking Chinese or whoever are probably gonna fucking try to steal it. But it seems like there's actually not really any evidence that they stole Fable specifically. I think I mean, but it wouldn't surprise me, right? Like if they did, especially if like we're framing it as a race, kind of what enemy nations do, right? They're going to try to take our shit, especially if we're claiming we're ahead.
To circumvent some of these things. I'm curious for your general reaction, both to the geopolitics of it, because it does seem like an actual ban on Kimi K3 is coming sometime soon if these companies have their way, and then to the technological
People will get
piece.
it.
Just again, try to explain it in as layman terms as possible, because I know it gets complicated.
Yeah. So these open weight models, I mean, when they're published online, they have guardrails built into them. The thing is, it's trivial to remove them if you have like any technical capacity, and it costs like not very much time or money to do so. So functionally, whatever the model could do if it had
Jailbreaking. Talked about that in old videos. That's something I've heard. I put in a video. Jeffrey Hinton has said out of his own mouth. These models can be jailbroken, right? These are protections added on after the fact, right? Like the knowledge and capabilities exist. They just tried to prevent, through these guardrails, people accessing them, but they can be undermined.
no guardrails, like that's the version that will be accessible to everybody in perpetuity once it's published. And so people worry about this in a world where, like, say you make a model and it's like capable of teaching a novice to make a novel bioweapon. If you publish that model's weights to the world, it's just going to exist kind of forever. And that's a pretty scary world. And it's like bio is one of these things which is attack dominant. So it's really hard to defend against bioweapons. Cyber, it's like, well, if the good guys have access to the best models before the bad guys by like 6 months, maybe you can just patch everything. And it's like defense biased if you have like super capable AI agents. But yeah, we don't know yet, like when or if we'll be in the world of like, there's now this bioweapon generating machine that's just out there forever. And that worries a lot of people, understandably. And then the case for open weight models is that they kind of decentralize control and power. And so if Hugging Face had access to models that were like 2 years behind the state of the art, maybe they wouldn't have been able to detect and fend off this attack. And you'd just be like living at the mercy of these companies, which may or may not let you into their programs. And if you're in a, middle power, if you're in China, you also don't want to get hacked by anybody. And you might not have access to the best stuff. I have not looked into the report you're talking about as much.
That's a real quandary. I mean, they both come with significant risks. I am almost inclined to say that like the open weight one is more dangerous because it sounds like you're still putting out and proliferating that capability everywhere. I mean, I don't understand enough about the technical part to know, but I do have to admit, like, I don't know if China doing that is a wise thing, and I think that, and I mean, that is fucking terrifying. And so I think that this is another case of like, we need cooperation, domestic and internationally, especially now internationally. And these assholes that are competing with each other, they're gonna have to get over themselves. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, they have to get out of this fucking pissing match, and they need to do what they need to do to like organize for the better of the world. And I mean, that honestly should have been long done by now.
I do think it's like you can't really address AI in this like jurisdiction based way, right? Like if the US makes it hard for US developers and companies to use open weight models from China, then they'll still be used in other parts of the world. And you're not going to be like safe from their effects, given just like the way technology and AI and software in particular diffuses. The distillation attacks that Kratsios is talking about, like, yeah, that seems quite likely to be true. Like Kimi will identify as Claude if you ask it. I mean, you got to acknowledge the irony of these companies being like, oh no, they took our data. It's like, well, yeah, so did you.
You took literally all of our data. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's like a bit
Thank you.
Distillation, it's like they're just harvesting.
Thank you. And that is why I don't want to hear any of this nationalist bullshit. Don't give me any of that. Like, this is for the good of America. We're competing with China. It's some like sort of Sputnik moment. Fuck yourself. Fuck yourself. Let's like not act like this isn't what it is. Which is these fucking people that subscribe to this pseudo-religious bullshit in Silicon Valley have gotten together and created these ideologies that led to the creation of these companies and these technologies. And they're using American nationalism and, previous industrial and technological revolutions to justify their nonsensical race to build whatever the fuck they want to build. And they're co-opting that to continually get away with it. And everybody forgets, right? Every time one of these fucking people, the fucking Indian dude that, used to work for Facebook, that's on the All In podcast, David Sachs, all these fucking people, right? They always forget that part. It's like, oh, well, now we're in a situation where because we're in a race and because we're into this and that, we have to, in the good of American. No. Go back to the beginning. We didn't ask for this. You fucking people chose to do this by stealing our data, scraping our data, manipulating people's information, geolocating and mapping shit from fucking Pokemon games, from scraping the internet and shit to build these data sets, to build GPT and build the Google DeepMind models and all these things, stealing people's intellectual property, doing all these underhanded things to take people's information, all the shit that they've scraped, I'm sure, from Facebook and Instagram, fucked up terms and conditions, whatever the fuck it is. Start there when you tell the story. Stop jumping to the oh, AI is here, AI is inevitable. No. Those are choices made by people that stole information from the public and are choosing to go this direction and are co-opting these things to justify the nonsense, and then are telling the public it is your civic duty to overlook our transgressions because now we have to win in the interest of national security and of our national interest. No. At the very least, tell the fucking story from the beginning. Right? And every time you see one of these motherfuckers get up there talking about this stuff, they always forget to include that part. Fucking so conveniently. And the public is waking up. The public knows. People know. Right? The fucking marketing is wearing off, and I think these people are feeling it. I'm so glad he highlighted that point.
Like Kimi will identify as Claude if you ask it. I mean, you got to acknowledge the irony of these companies being like, oh no, they took our data. It's like, oh yeah, so did you.
You took literally all of our data. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a bit, distillation. It's like they're just harvesting very, directly like the same type of thing. And yeah, but then the U.S. approach of like, all right, we got to deploy faster and more the best models. Like that's going to let them keep distilling the models. And so this idea that like the U.S. is going to win the race by publishing more capable models faster just makes no sense. You're just letting other countries fast follow.
You're giving it to them.
And so it's just kind of all backwards. Like if you regulated and slowed down in the U.S., that would slow down China as well.
Got it.
Interesting. I did see, I don't know enough about
this. Which makes
but
sense,
Bertrand,
right?
Who's an analyst I follow on Twitter.
Like we were supposedly considerably at least 6 months to a year ahead, and then all of a sudden they're closing the gap. You don't think these people are doing everything that they can to copy, and figure out what these frontier models that they're releasing for public use, can do? Especially if you're characterizing it as a race, of course that's what they're going to do. So even if you are in the lead, they're gonna, and that's what we're seeing, right? Is the gap, and then now it's closed. And from what I've seen, apparently, like a lot of the AI scientists in the US and in China have some level of cooperation. You know, they communicate like it's more nuanced than I think, the bill of goods they're selling us that there's like this iron wall between us and China, especially on the technological front, and that there's no path to cooperation. It's like it's obviously, more nuanced than that. And yeah, it makes sense. Like it seems odd that we could be so far ahead and now the gap is just closing. Like they're just like, no, it's because you're putting the shit out there and they're going off of that and, making their own version. And they're gonna fucking eat our lunch and they're gonna fucking destroy our economy. These people are just, they're spending way, 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 way more money. Way more money. Like and that I'm thinking that bubble is gonna pop, bro. If this goes, like because to me, my understanding is like so much of that is contingent on us staying ahead. If we're no longer ahead, what does that mean, right?
A very smart guy. He's really skeptical of this claim that that Kimi K3 was distilled from Fable 5 simply because of the timeline. Fable 5 was not out that long before Kimi K3 was released. He's saying it would take a lot longer if that was actually the approach. I don't know whether that's true or not, but just wanted to throw that into the conversation. But Bernie Sanders, I think, understandably saw this hack and said, listen, this is why we've got to regulate AI more. We have to have more control over these things. We're putting these things out to the public. We're trusting Sam Altman and whoever else to, have our best interest at heart.
And that's another thing too, is like, oh, well, we can't regulate. No regulation at all because China won't regulate. Oh, well, turns out they are regulating in some capacity, at least more than we are. So we already know that that's fucking bullshit.
Do a thorough job of testing these and make sure that they're not going to cause problems out there in the world. That seems like a preposterous thing to do. At the same time, I mean, if you do have these open weight models that have basically the same capabilities, really undercuts the ability to regulate and constrain AI here at home. So, how do you think about what we should do from a domestic perspective when we live in a global world, technology is global, et cetera?
Yeah. I mean, I would say the open weight models are like 6 months behind still. I think there's like this Axios headline. I think that was just inaccurate. And if Kimi wasn't distilling from Fable, it was distilling from Opus and other models. Like, I don't know exactly the details, but it's quite
Yeah,
likely it was
Opus and
distilling
Opus, yeah.
from American models, at least in part. I think we obviously need to have international rules around AI that are binding, that don't require trust between the parties. And there are technical approaches. You can verify what's happening in data centers using like devices on the chips themselves. And you could create institutions like the International Atomic Energy Agency, but for AI. And I think this hack is just a great example of like, again, this will scale. Like this will happen again. It will be worse in the future. Like something will be worse than this.
Yes, it will.
It's almost guaranteed. And if the US decides to regulate and China is regulating actually far more than the US is and still managing to catch up quite quickly. So I think there's like some assumptions that need to be tested here. But you can change the risk landscape. You can create kind of like a floor within your own country. And you can also say like, hey, if you're a Chinese company and you want to serve models in the United States, you have to comply with these regulations as well. That's what states have been doing. California, New York, Illinois. If you want to serve models in those states, you have to do certain things. And because those are big markets, they're just going to do those things.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but I think the U.S. should be, I mean, there are dialogues between the U.S. and China. I think that should continue and accelerate. And I think ultimately, in the good future, there's going to be some kind of deal.
Yeah, see, he said it right there. Like there already is a level of dialogue, at least I think from like the scientific communities. And so much of this narrative, especially the accelerationist narrative, is, as far as I can tell, bullshit, and it's coming apart. And I think I don't know. There's so many assumptions coming from all these different directions, and I don't know what to make of it for sure. As I've said, I'm here trying to figure it out with everybody else. But I mean, look, people are reckless. We we self sabotage. We do things to put ourselves in danger. Absolutely. But I do think there's also the thing of like the danger is so explicitly pronounced from so many people that there's also people that want to live, that want to self preserve, and I think I hope that there's so much public backlash against sort of the AI project, whether that's super intelligence or not. I mean, I think the data center thing is important, even if, you know, a lot of the AI safety people don't want to acknowledge that. And it's like, dude, like that is important, and at least from a political perspective, because people care about that and it relates directly to the AI issue. And so I'm not so sure of what's going to happen because it seems to me that these people are not stopping. And this sort of stuff is going to get more and more into the news. It doesn't seem to me that public opinion is going to significantly increase with this anytime soon. And it does seem that they're pushing harder on the data center issue. So I don't know. I don't see the popularity polls of, you know, AI, and I'm not talking about usage. I mean like the approval of AI, the alleviation of anxiety about AI. I don't see that going anywhere anytime soon. I think it's going to go the opposite direction. People are going to get more and more nervous and more concerned. And as stories like this come out, I hope that pushes further and further, because I think whether these people want to use this race narrative or not, I think that it's going to get to a point that even in the interest of national security, like people are just not going to buy it anymore. People are going to tell you, insofar as they can help it, like fuck yourself. Fuck the war. Like, fuck this race. I don't care. I don't want that fucking thing in my backyard. Like, I don't want it there. And again, I think that comes down to like, we did not ask for this. We did not choose this. We did not vote for this. As a matter of fact, you've stolen from us. We don't trust you. Right. And I think that there is going to be a considerable push. And unfortunately, it might go to the level of social unrest. And I hope that it doesn't. But I do feel like it's overlapping in this perfect storm where people don't trust, especially since COVID, people don't trust institutions. They don't trust the powers that be. They don't trust um, super rich people that have exorbitant amounts of influence, especially the billionaire class. You're seeing that, I think, overlap with, the increase of, support for democratically socialist candidates, whether you approve of that or not, you know, and I think all of this shit is coming together, and it's not going to be good. So I hope that we do get to that point, because I think we're getting we're getting into territory where like people are going to ask for regulation. I think you already have the precedent set, for social media crossing this threshold, with the Meta and YouTube cases and all that. Like, I think we're getting to that point that people want to be more hands on with this stuff. They really don't trust big tech. So I think we do need to regulate. And I do think that this nonsense of like, just don't do anything, because doing nothing and racing as fast as possible is going to fly. I just don't think it's going to work for much longer. And I do think it's not a coincidence that the people that are most ideologically driven to make it go as fast as possible are the ones leading the narrative. Like, it just seems nuts to me.
Between the US and China to regulate AI, to ban certain things, to mandate other things. And that will happen because, again, the bioweapon problem, like the hackers, the terrorists, like there's going to be that at least. And there's also just this thing of like, we could lose control of AIs. We just did, we being OpenAI here. We could also lose control to AIs if they get capable, autonomous, numerous enough, which is like where things are trending. We don't know when, but that's just like the thing that happens by default. And so we just need to do something about it.
Garrison, what do you make of the economic landscape here? Because that was a lot of the discussion around the Kimi K3 release as well. And even if you don't think it's as advanced as, let's say, Fable 5, it's, they're getting pretty close here. And it's much, much cheaper. Anthropic and OpenAI seem to have freaked out pretty hard and are basically calling on the Trump administration to come in and bail them out because they have these mass amounts of investor money flowing into them. It only makes sense if they're going to get astronomical returns from replacing human labor. How do you think this all works out? I mean, do you see this as a bubble? Do you think that the future is more like AI is sort of a utility the way the internet is and more of the money is made in the applications? How do you view the economic pieces of this?
Yeah, it's hard to say for sure. I think people speak very confidently on this, and it's a really big, complex topic. I would say that prior to recent months, the case for it being a bubble got a lot weaker because Anthropic's revenue grew the fastest a company's revenue has ever grown at that level, going from a few billion annualized at the start of the year to 47 billion annualized by May, I want to say. And we don't know what it is now. It may have slowed down. I think that the cost pressure or the pressure on prices from capable open weight models.
And I don't understand how all that stuff works, but it just seems untenable. Right? It just, especially if these models come through and just undercut, if they're closing the gap so close in capability, can those companies really justify, this money, that's being floated in? If they were the only game in town, but that does not seem to be the case anymore, right? So what is justifying this crazy inflation of capital? And, that also calls into question, do we really need this $700-800 billion infrastructure build out, to justify this? If China is doing it with weaker, not as good chips and, not top of the line hardware. Wasn't that sort of the DeepSeek thing to begin with? They did it with way less. It's not my area, but yeah, I don't see how that's a tenable, sustainable situation under these circumstances.
Models, it's just always going to be chasing the frontier, right? And so the American business model for these releases is have the very best models by capabilities, charge a premium for them, and then keep releasing better models to stay ahead of the open weight frontier. And that starts to break if it takes a lot longer to publish your own models. And so Mythos was finished training in February. It doesn't come out as Fable until June, May. And then it's taken down and then it comes back. And so in that time, Kimi can catch up, get closer. And so, yeah, the whole fast release, release things as almost as soon as you have them and capture that premium while you can, starts to break if there's a kind of slowed down testing process, if the government is just deciding arbitrarily or without transparent criteria of what models are capable enough to release or have.
And that's why you need somebody better than fucking David Sachs. He needs, the president needs actual advisors that know what the fuck they're talking about to make better decisions on this stuff. Not fucking Pete Hegseth and whoever the fuck else is affiliated with the Pentagon. They need actual people that know what the fuck is going on to make better decisions about this stuff.
Rails that are good enough to release, then it gives open weight models more time to eat your lunch. And this is all predicated on the models continuing to get better, or at least there continuing to be demand for the premium version of these things, which are priced at substantially above what it costs to serve them, which is why the open weight models are able to undercut them so much, right? There's this big idea of oh, is it profitable to serve a given customer? The answer is clearly yes. The financial data shows this. The fact that open weight models that are in the same ballpark are so much cheaper, again, is just showing the raw cost, which we don't know from the outside, but we.
And the average person doesn't need the most advanced model. I would be very interested to look at the data on this of what the numbers are of people using like what they're really using it for. I don't think the vast majority of people are like power users using the most frontier models. Right. And I think I've seen stuff that like companies are already starting to adopt some of the Chinese models because they're less risky and cheaper to run. Right. Like that's a problem. Like I think you already have American companies. And I think that's where this ban comes in, right? They don't want to allow American companies to adopt this stuff, but I think it's going in that direction, So like that, that's not good news, especially with, all this invested money on the line.
Can infer from a bunch of reporting, a bunch of other things, and just like think of how verbose the models are. Would they do that if they weren't making money by the token?
Right, right. That makes a lot of sense. Really appreciate your analysis here, man. I'm looking for.
This is just a fucking shit show. Like it really is. Like I don't know what it's gonna take. I think it is gonna take public pressure. Like it's just gonna reach a point where it's not tenable. And I mean it looks to me like it's just like we're especially financially, it's putting the country in just a hugely more compromised position. And it looks like they're losing the edge, at least the edge significant enough to matter. Like I'd have to dig more into what the particulars are, but how many people really need the most advanced model? You know, at what point is like even a couple of generations back good enough for the most part? I don't even think like China needs to be on the frontier to really overtake the market. Maybe them being just less of a less of a risk, is enough. So we'll dive more into that, but this is concerning. Whether you think it's a marketing stunt or not, I think we are in dangerous territory. And I do think these kinds of things are going to get more and more common. Um, I hope they don't, but if they do, I hope that it doesn't go super bad. I hope that there is a silver lining where, you know, these companies and the government wake up enough to, take reasonable action to correct, because I think, public is losing their patience. And I think that these lines, like these races and, you know, all this payoff and utopia and all these other things that they've been feeding people for the past 4 or 5 years or whatever, I think they're losing water. I think people are getting skeptical, and it turns out I think that most people don't want to give up their futures just to have productivity gains and some empty promise of utopia and hyper super robot Jedi Star Trekky future. It seems to me that a lot of people are might be a lot less interested in that, or they're not willing to take the gamble required there, and it seems to be disillusioning some of the people in the Silicon Valley bubble. I don't know, maybe I'm off base there, but that's just my thoughts. Anyway, thank you guys so much for joining me on Zane Zone Unlimited. We're gonna, keep our eyes on this and just keep talking about it. Spread the word, have the conversations. I'm not sure too much of what can be done, other than that, but I do think it needs to be. I'm still trying to figure that out, but I do think it needs to be in the public consciousness. We need to decide where we sit on this, what candidates we're going to support, what products we're going to use, and the general attitude towards this and how we're gonna live with it. Um, so we got to keep our eye on what's happening, because it does seem to be more and more consequential. So again, thank you guys so much for joining me on Zane Zone Unlimited. That was me zoning in, and now I am zoning